Hi, hello, and how the heck are you? That's right. That Rockwell timepiece says it's time to get coached up with another edition of the Coach Scott Field Show. That's right. I continue to be a brand ambassador for Rockwell. And if you go to rockwelltime.com, use the code Coach20, you'll get 20% off of any order there. Great looking merchandise. Like and follow the
Right
Coach
on.
Scott Field Show on our Facebook page. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. If you're listening to us in podcast form, T Farm and I say turn that knob up because we're about to put that flavor in your ear. Watch us on DBTV Mondays through Fridays and also Saturday afternoons, where we've just surpassed 400,000 viewers per day and an opportunity to be seen in over 300 million households around the globe. Check us out on CSTV on Wednesday afternoons and also the Sports Rewind 60. Appreciate your support no matter how you consume us. But without further ado, you're not here to hear me jabber. You're here to hear my guy, and it's long overdue. My man, Tony Farmer. Tony, how the heck are you, buddy?
I'm doing good, Coach. Thanks for having me on the show. Appreciate it.
Oh, it's great to have you, and I appreciate your flexibility because short notice you were able to jump on and be able to give the viewers what they need and what they want.
Correct.
All right, so Tony, you and I, we have a relationship that goes back multiple years, and it's an honor for me to have you sitting across from me right now. You have a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of expertise, a successful businessman on and off the court. You're a family man, and I appreciate all those values that you bring to this show.
No, I appreciate it. I mean, there's things that have always been important for myself, ethical, making sure I'm being the best I can for my family, for my kids, for my wife, for my dog, everybody that I represent, our companies that we own. So it's a big deal to be able to carry that torch, right? Life is so short. We're full of emotions, full of ambitions, full of setbacks, but we just have to continue to punch the cash register and hope there's some cash in the end.
There you go. I like that. You've had a great career, and basketball has been good to both you and I. We first crossed paths when you were actually playing down in Puerto Rico, and I believe you were with Ponce at the time, and I was with Fajardo with a young Carlos Arroyo in that Superior League, and you were killing it down there.
Yeah, I mean, Puerto Rico has always had a special place for me. Love the people down there, love the league. I was fortunate enough to bless to do well in that league. They named me, as you probably know, one of the top 10 imports ever to play there. So that's a big mark for me and myself because, I played hard every time I went out and did the best I could. But it was a lot tougher league than people thought. I was one of the first actually, quote unquote, NBA players to go down there and play. And, you had Carlos down there when he was just at FIU and then trying to make his mark. But it's a great league. I mean, I aspire to go back down there, take my family down there, and I get hit up all the time on Facebook from fans after fans after fans after fans that they always say they try to compare the imports to me playing down there with the team. And so I had a great ride in Ponce, won 6 awards down there, great relationships, met you down there. So Puerto Rico is really good.
And see, I love the fact that, it doesn't get enough talk. It's a league that used to play just in the summertime months. The level is very high. The local players are very competitive. They're highly skilled. There's great guard play down there. But also, I mean, you think of Jose Picolín, you think of Carlos Arroyo, you think of JJ Barea, players that you played with at that time. I mean, that's a competitive league. Gosh, Phil Jackson got some coaching in down there, and there's some big name coaches that have gone through and used that as a training grounds to the NBA, as you know.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't really understand the competition of Puerto Rico is steep, right? You look at the times when I was down there, Tonito Colon was my point guard. Eddie Cassiano played against, Picolín Ortiz played against him. You look at Jerome Mincy, Frankie Western. There's a lot of guys that, I played against a lot, Fernando Ortiz, the Del Mal brothers, the dad as a coach. And, what people don't really, understand more than anything, there's definitely a lot more different than people think, right? A lot of these NBA players are going down there right now, not making it, getting sent home, overweight or something like that, and they don't realize that at the end of the day, it's a lot tougher than they thought. And the times that I played, I believe the league was a lot tougher than it is now. And I
Yeah.
say that because you only can have 2 Americans per team. The local players are very, very good. The fans are just incredibly good or incredibly crazy. And the thing is you can go to any gym on any given night and get beat. So, for me, I played 32 games in 71 days. That's an NBA schedule. We're playing 4 to 5 games a week, but I loved it. And for my 6 years down there, and for me to still get remembered, 20 something years later shows that I must have did something well.
Definitely a legacy and yet a pioneer, because you look now today, Boogie Cousins is down there doing some good things, staying in shape, showcasing his skills, hoping for maybe a call up to have an opportunity to get back into the league, where he's been kind of on a list of players to consider, but not in the league where he wants to be.
Yeah, I mean, what they don't really understand is until they get down there, they're not going to go down and score 30 points, get 20 rebounds. I mean, I understand the Hassan Whiteside is playing well down there, but I mean, honestly, Coach, when you look at, to me, that's just to me, and speaking to guys I played with and against, they all have told me the competition is a lot different now than when we played. I remember we played Artesibo, and we had to make sure that Larry Ayuso, he couldn't start shooting threes all over the court. And playing against a guy named Georgie Torres. He was like a super legend down there. Mario Butler, Rolando Frazier, Anthony Bonner, Monty Wilson. I played against a lot of these guys that, were some go-getters. Every night they laced them up. And it was pretty interesting because as I began to play more and I started to develop a name within my first year or two, I felt I was getting double teamed, triple teamed, but I always just found a way to help, lead my team to a victorious matter and establish some good relationships on and off the court.
Yeah, see, I like that, and it's so true. I mean, you think of San Germán, you think of Bayamón, you think of Ponce, you think of Isabela, Quebradillas, I mean, and just Mayuez. I mean, just some great arenas with great fans. I can remember coming out of one of our games, and the fans were so rowdy and so upset that they actually went out, found the referees' cars, flipped the referees' cars in the parking lot. Now that's some passion right there.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a hit or miss, right? You can go on the road and they can either love you or they can hate you. And I think one thing that was beneficial for me is I never disrespected anybody down there, right? No one could ever say, hey, Tony Farmer was at the club. He got in a fight with the player. He got in a fight with the coach and the referee. They could never, ever say, because I embraced the culture, right? I embraced the culture, even though I was hated by other opponent fans and stuff like that. It was from a sports standpoint that I would come in and help our team win, not from an aspect of just really like dislike me. But I got a lot of positive feedback, even to this day, from fans across that league that I didn't play for that specific franchise.
Right. And that's a mutual respect that was given to you because of your style of play. And like you said, you elevated the play of the team, and the teams that were playing against you knew that they had to be on their best or they were going to get embarrassed.
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty impressed for the fact, like one of my first times playing down there, and I played against Picolín, right? And I played against him the whole entire game. I guarded him, and then he guarded me for a while, and he couldn't keep up. And I think one of the biggest things I got from him was after the game, he said I was the toughest opponent he's ever faced in the league. And I
Wow.
remember when Orlando Ortigua, he was playing with him, as well, and they had a good team, Rolando Hurricane and these kind of guys, and Guayacan, and they had a solid team. But our team was always able to make it a competitive game. I'm not saying we won every game, but we made it real tough. And for the time I played in Caguas, was my first experience down there. They predict us to be like 6th or 7th in the league, and I took us all the way to 3, right? And then came put my time there, went to Ponce, and once I got to Ponce, that's when I really started writing a ticket even more. And it was pretty interesting because I had a fan tell me the other day on Facebook, he said, it's interesting, Tony, because these Americans are coming through. We got Lance Stevenson's and different people on there, and everybody is saying, hey, they're comparing them to you. And they're comparing, because I got a comment on Facebook, and somebody said, "Yeah, this guy is okay, but how does he compare to the Caballo Tony Farmer, because he did so much for the franchise?" And I say that because it's tough to impress, as you know, Coach Bennell. It's tough to impress those nature because they're basketball fans, and people don't really realize is Puerto Rico's two sports, or actually three sports: baseball, volleyball, and basketball. It's not soccer. It's not anything else. And their culture is really big on, if you embrace them and the culture, that you're going to be there for life. But you see a lot of players go down there and say, "Oh, I played in the NBA, I did this," and they take that mentality and that attitude down there, and they think that's going to get them to the next level, get respect. It actually dilutes their talent level, and they realize that you're not going to come down and just dominate and just take these guys, because the local players will always be the ones higher than the American players.
Yeah, I like that. And the fact that you just said you took a team from 6 to 3, that's a great jump in that league, because that league has a lot of parity. So to jump 3 spots, that's a big move.
Yeah, I mean, actually, it was even lower when I first got there, and because I was playing with Congress, and we didn't have any quote unquote, let's say, Olympic players, except for one. We had a guy named Luis Allende. But, we went to battle, Ferdinand Morales, Gary Joe Burgos, our coach Mundi as well. So I just remember the first day I got there, I just told the guys, "Hey, I'm here to win. I'm going to be on you. I'm going to play hard. I'm going to practice every day." And we went out, we started beating some teams and taking notice, and people were realizing that we weren't a pushover. And, we ended up going, and I remember the fans being disappointed because I had to leave before the season finished, but I fulfilled my agreement with Congress, right? I told them, no, that's my first time down there. I went to a certain part. The Charlotte Hornets told me enough is enough. You got to come back. You got to get ready to join us for training camp. We don't need you hurt. And it just kind of, domino from that, but not in a bad way. And then I remember the minute I finished with during the season with Charlotte, I'll never forget, the owner from Ponce, Augustine, he was a lawyer, Augustine Garcia. He personally called me up, coach, and was like, "I would love for you to play with my team. Give me a price." And I said, "Well, I don't really do that. You can speak to my agent. He handles that. That's his job. But, I'd be interested in talking to you further." And then from that standpoint, he jumped on a plane, and him and I met in Florida with my agent, and he wanted to hammer out a deal before my NBA season was even over.
Wow, that's impressive stuff. And like I loved the people down there. I loved their passion for the game. Fans did a great job. And you talked about basketball, baseball, volleyball. I mean, boxing's pretty big down there too.
Yeah, it
So
is.
yeah, so to think about how much fun that they have. And then you also have to think too, Puerto Rico, when Carlos Arroyo was point guard of that national team, they beat the Americans at the World Championship. So I mean, that's a big move. And I think that's when Carlos Arroyo was famous for, tugging on the jersey and,
Yeah.
and showing that pride too. You have to feel good about that, because you helped elevate that level in that country and help grow basketball down there to where they can be confident to know that they can compete on a big stage globally.
Well, I mean, when I had a chance to meet Carlos for the first time, like I said, he was 17 when you had him. He was going to FIU, and he was explaining to me, he's like, "Hey, you're one guy that I looked up to," because he knew Jose Ramos. He was very good with him, and then another guy, I think Cesar Portillo. I remember that a big guy played at Florida, so he was that Puerto Rican connection and how they embraced everything was kind of how he wanted to feature. And I remember, I'll never forget when he actually met me, he was like, I got to do some things that you do. I said, "No, you got to do some things that you can do yourself, and you build your own legacy. You build your own thing." I said, "There's only going to be one Carlos Arroyo. There's one Piccoline. There's one guy of this. There's one guy of that. So you got to emulate yourself." And I said, "But use Puerto Rico, man, as a stepping stone to get to where you got to be. Every time you finish with FIU, you should come down here and play, in the BSN. And if you can get it approved by the NCAA, then you should do that." But, the thing that a lot of people don't really understand, Coach, more than anything about the Puerto Rican culture and the basketball, is they feel that it's easy, right? They say, "Oh, summer league, I'm going to go down there, I'm going to hang out. And I always would hear these, the Americans, as they call them, refuerzos, and they come down and say, "Oh, I'm going to go this, hang out." They got the girls, they got the club, and 9 times out of 10, those guys are getting sent home.
Yeah.
And
Immediately.
yeah,
Immediately.
immediately, and it was pretty
Yeah.
interesting because, for me per se, in my 5, 6 years down there, I never came remotely close to getting cut on anything from down there. And actually, it was interesting because I remember playing for Floor, for 2 years. He flat out
Flor
told me, he
Mendez.
said, yeah, he was like, "Hey, we're thinking about bringing this guy. What do you think?" I was like, "Well, that's not really my decision. You're the coach." He goes, "No, we need to have him be able to play with you, not you be able to play with him." So that kind of made me feel good from a coaching ownership standpoint. I had good relations with the owners, good relations with the players. You'd never seen me fight with the players, argue with the players, and they kind of respected me. And it felt good that when I was in Ponce, Antonito came to me and said, "Hey, I'm normally the captain, but you and I, we're going to be the captains this year." And that was from him. And I remember
Wow.
I had a deal with Dunk.net. I signed with Shaq's company. I got the whole team shoes and sweats. And I say that because it made me feel good, because you look at, fast forward in 2023, 23, 25 years later, for them, to still remember, I just tell myself it's a lot different. And even at 53 years old right now, playing, 3, 4 times as much as I can in the week, I still think I can go down there and get 15 the way that the guys down there compared to what we do. My gosh.
Oh, I love that. Well, thinking back to some of those memories in that league, because it is special, what were some of your favorite venues to play in? Because they have some great venues.
They do. That what's interesting about Puerto Rico, it kind of reminded me of when I first got cut from the Lakers. I went to the CBA, right? So the CBA, I was like, man, these arenas are just retarded crazy. And I'm going to cities I'd never even experienced. And I remember, Clay Moser was our assistant coach in Sioux Falls, right? And I loved it because he was like so passionate. Kevin McKinnon was our head coach. And I remember Clay said, "Hey, Rook, this is just how it is." I was like, "Man, but we're taking like these bus rides. We're going these crop duster planes. We're going to Rapid City. I got Eric Musselman cussing me out." And then I go to Puerto Rico, and it's the same kind of environment, right? They have this franchise called Ibanito, and it's way in the
Benito.
mountains. It's twirling and twirling and twirling and twirling, and they call it the Ibanito chicken, right? And at first, I thought, when I first went up to the on the road, because as well as I know, there's no road trips. You take yourself to the game.
Yeah.
So I remember the team getting me this minivan, because I was like, "Hey, I want to get a minivan." They're like, "Why?" I said, "Because I'm gonna take some of my teammates were with me to the game." I said, "I'll use my gas." The team was paying for my gas, and I was able to start really teaming up with guys like Ferdinand Morales, Lewis. We was all going to some of the games together, but I would just drive. And I was like, "Hey, man, I'm not joking. If you're taking me up to this mountain to get lynched up here, it's okay." And we went up there, and it was crazy. They had Marcus Liberty, and they had a guy named Norman Nolan, 2 scores, right? And we beat them, and they were like throwing beer and all this kind of stuff. I was like, "You guys are crazy." So that was one, right? And then you go to Bayamon, they have their tradition, but the fans aren't really like rowdy. But like San German, rowdy, rowdy. And it's funny because, you go there, and if you win, and for me, my winning percentage was a lot higher than my losing percentage, right? And, there are some tough places to play. Isabella, not so much. Quebradillas, craziness of fans. And, I got a chance to play in the old arena, right? And then they're building that new arena. But the thing that trips me out, Coach, about Puerto Rico is a lot of people don't know the history of these arenas, right? Fajardo is way out there, and then
Way
all
out
of a
west.
sudden, way out west, and then they're saying, "Well, what's out here?" And I was like, "Michael Jordan has a residence out here. That's what's out here. He's near the El Conquistador." So,
That's right. Yeah. The
those
casino.
those arenas were tough to play in, and the hardest part from the league is the back-to-backs. As I'm just speaking for myself, right? Because I played almost 40 minutes every single night and having to do so much. But you go on the road, and I used to just eat it up. I never forget, and I had a fan remind me not too long ago of a game-winning shot that I hit against Cuomo, right? It's like way out from the 3-point line, and I hit the shot to win the game. And I started dancing at the half court, and I got these fans cussing me out, and they know I understand Spanish. I'm like, "You guys are just mad because we win." But one thing for sure, you'll never see that passion in the NBA ever.
Yeah. Man, see, when you're sharing those stories and you're dropping the names, so many of those names come back and flood my mind. That triggers memories. That was so fun down there. I loved that league. I loved the players. The talent level, like you said earlier, was much higher than what people gave them respect for. And if you went down there with a professional attitude and stayed focused to your craft and worked on your skills and helped the other players develop,
Of course.
that's why they embraced you so much, Tony. So I got to give you your flowers for that, because that is a high honor and recognition to be on that list of top 10 players to ever go down there and wear a jersey and promote basketball the way that you did.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate it too, coach. Is the fact that when I went down there myself, I didn't know what to expect. Right, the first time I ever went down, I played with Bayamon, and I remember I met Cuco Ortiz. He was the owner at the time, and he said, "Come down here, see if you like it." I played first 6, 7 games. Hurt my finger. Then I had to leave, and then Miami Heat came calling. So then the next time I went to Cagos, and then kept playing season after season. But I explain to players all the time, even today, like you have to be able to adjust to where you go. So from Puerto Rico, I was able to do that. Went to France, won a championship, I was able to do that. Went to Spain, all these places that I went to and I played, I've always been able to embrace the culture and the people when I went, right? When I played in Russia for Lokomotiv, they're saying, oh, this city's so small and, this team is not this. And then we went all the way to the Korach Cup finals and lost to Nancy. But the places I used to tell people, I'm just used to winning because I kind of like bet on me bringing my team together, right? The same thing when I was in Nebraska. Great, great, great group of guys. We stayed there in the summertime, was able to manifest some great relations with these guys, and we're able to win. And the thing that I see now these days with these kids, like now it's the entourage. You got the AAU coach, you got the gatekeeper, you got all these people that are on a fictitious payroll, and it's really, really polluting the way basketball is coming along. So, my wife and I and George Banks, we're in the process right now out here in California of opening up a 35,000 square foot basketball facility with 3 NBA courts and things like that. Because, for us, we want to be able to teach the game right, be able to show them how it's done of that old school basketball. So give us the kid that can't walk and chew gum before you give me a Mikey Williams or one of these blue chippers that can't keep their nose clean just based off the fact that they have that new school Ja Morant mentality, and that gets you nowhere fast. So if they learn to have like old school coaches like you, old school players like me, I think the game will be better. And if you notice that true veterans of the game, you talk to Magic, you talk to Glenn Rice, you talk to Gary Payton, you talk to Karl Malone, you talk to some of those type of players, they're going to tell you almost the same thing that's indicative of the behavior of veterans, because the problem now is most professional athletes coming now, they're spoiled. You got the overtime, you got the G League, you got rookies making 500,000, you got the NIL. I was like, if I had NIL in Nebraska, I probably could have had zillions for what we got down there. But is it a good thing? Yes, I think it's a great thing because it keeps these kids in school longer. But when you look at a league like Puerto Rico, these guys go down there assuming that they're going to kill because they're going to be like, well, that's Puerto Rico. And they got some players down there until they really realize that those players can really play and they're not dominating. And you look at the old school referees like a Pucho Figueroa, you know what I mean? Or some of those guys that ref, and Jack Nees that he's coming from, and, rest in peace to Ted Bernhardt. I remember Ted specifically told me, he said, you're one of the few players that I've seen that came from the NBA and adjusted down here and killed these dudes down here and still played well. And that's not easy to do. And he goes, what do you think does it for you? I said, the ability to adapt to my teammates, the ability to embrace the city, the ability to respect the owners and respect the fans. At the end of the day, they made this culture before I got here. So once I understood the history of Ponce, what it takes to be a Leonis, right? And how they used to take me to these sports bars for appearances, and I used to eat all the restaurants for free. And I say that because I didn't have to do that. They were paying me enough money to buy my own. I honestly did it for the PR.
Yeah, that and see those are great moves. And when I hear you talking right now, many things resonate to me. And a word that keeps coming to my mind as you spoke is entitlement. So many of
Right.
these players today have so much entitlement, expecting something before they ever gone down there and embraced it and earned it. So hearing that you're going to open up a facility and develop players and teach them life skills that they will carry with them for the rest of their lives. That's what's missing in grassroots basketball right now, because they're just jumping from team to team and they're just going for whatever endorsement deal that they can have. And they're not teaching basketball skills. They're not learning basketball mastery as far as ball handling, proper shooting mechanics. I mean, post entry passes, footwork has become a lost art because they're just relying on athleticism. Whereas a player like you today, in today's game, think how your game today would translate to this NBA game, because you could space it out and shoot it well beyond the 3-point lane, which is going to give them, a lot of spacing and allow players to create off the dribble, where you could play with your back to the basket on the post or face up and shoot. And that would be beautiful in today's game. So you were a little bit beyond your time, being 6'9", 6'10", and the ability to shoot it at the range that you were able to shoot it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that really helped me more than anything was that, right? And I give Floor a lot of credit, because when I first signed with him, I didn't sign with him, so I talked to him. And at that time, he was in Brazil coaching a team called Flamengo, or one of those kind of teams.
Yep.
And he was down there coaching. And so he flew back, and him and I met, right? And he was telling me, he's like, look, I want to have the team built around you and Tonito, right? So then Tonito hurt his knee and he didn't play. So he came back and said, hey, you're going to help us win. You're going to help us get the American, but this is what I'm thinking. And I give him a lot of credit, because he's the best coach I've played for down there, because he really knew how to utilize me. And one thing he used to tell the guys, Tony's playing 40 minutes every single night. He's not going to practice. He's going to ice up. He's going to get some shots up. And then I'd be like, no, Floor, I'm going to practice. I want to be out there with the guys. But it's just the fact, like, I love to play so much, and I felt guilty by just resting. But then I realized, my body's got to rest, because I got to either return to the NBA or where I'm going. But, once I started to realize the landscape of the league and start to study the players, and when on guys on their off days or doing other things, I was going to other arenas, watching, other teams play. But then it got so hectic because of the fan situation. I was never in danger, but it's just that they get to the point that, just like basketball fans, they just close. Yeah. So, I had to stop. But I used to catch all the games on TV. But by far, it's a lot of things that I think even today that can improve in the league down there. I mean, if I had a chance to go help the league, I would. I think a lot of adjustments can be made to make it for the better. And I think they should bring back the older mentality of when I first played, right? Right now, there's a lot of extra shenanigans going on that they're not really getting the true culture of basketball. I think Ponce deserves to win another championship to do that. I think, guys like yourself should be down there coaching these teams, because I'm looking at some of these guys coaching, I'm like, where are they coming from? But you see that they're trying to give the Pachi Cruz jobs, the Larry Ayuso jobs. I mean, that's great, for the league and great for what they're trying to do, but they should get some old school tenure in there to reteach these guys the game of professional basketball.
Yeah. And see, I like that, because if you think about it, we're using the term culture a lot, and to establish a winning culture. I mean, look at the Miami Heat and what they're doing today. And you got Udonis Haslem on the bench to have that experience and that vocal leadership on the bench and in the locker room. And a lot of people overlook those little things, but those little details are specific to building what you want. So he can get these young guys under his wing and be like, hey, this is what you need to do to be a pro. And you're speaking from wisdom, from experience, from knowledge, and you have all that knowledge that you can share to build that culture and create a positive product. Because for me as a coach, that's the kind of people I want to surround myself. Because for me as a coach, I want to put players in a position to be successful. And I always said, hey, T, I'll get you right. So for me, It's about, hey, what can I do and where can I put you on the floor to best showcase you, but yet with the team's big picture in mind and let everybody embrace their role. So I love hearing the expertise that you're sharing and that wisdom and knowledge that you're sharing for our viewers today.
Yeah, I mean, when you really think of how it is, right? I go back to the CBA, right, and look at the how tough that league.
Oh,
And you look at Eric Musselman, who's coaching at Arkansas right now, and you
right.
see he has Keith on his bench, Keith Smart. He had Clay up until last year. But the taking of the shirt off and his emotion, he's been doing that since he was 27 years old as a head
That's
coach
right.
at Rapid City. People just they don't understand that he's been doing that a very, very long time.
Yep.
But the thing is, you know, the CBA to me was much tougher than the G League could ever be, as far as like, you know, the level of competition, the type of play, the travel of the day. They're playing for quarter points. You know, there's a lot of guys
That's
who
right.
got called up who did well in the NBA. Then there's guys that didn't get called up that can play anywhere in the world, you know, just based on the talent level. So when you look at the construction of how basketball today is conforming to society. Society is not conforming to basketball, right? Basketball is adjusting to what society wants and is adjusting to what everybody wants to pay for, because when I played, there was no social media, right? Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and Snapchat and all these weren't in existence. So that makes the dilution a lot better than what today is, what gives you the pollution, right? Because
Yeah.
social media can sell somebody to get a scholarship or to get on ESPN. But when I played, it was a good old video cam, send Coach Fields, Coach Scott a VCR, let him watch and evaluate this player. Hey, if you have a VCR or DVD, if you can upload online, let me watch it, let me scout him, and let me see. But at the end of the day, you know, for me in Puerto Rico, it was just my talent and how I was overall, and that gave me the ability to have a long career. When I stopped playing down, I did down at my choice, right? I just
Yeah.
felt enough was enough at that point in time. But you know, when you look at it as a whole, these guys coming in and the way the league is a lot tougher. But I really would love to see them get a lot more endorsement, right? Like they should have a sponsor like a Nike or And1 or Q4, somebody like that coming in as a league-wide sponsor, Puma, one of these. But when I was there, they had a guy named Peyton Reyes. He was a president of the league at the time. And then I remember too, Fellow Rivera, who's my owner from Cagos. But I just really think if they would bring some basketball people, coach, to help, you know, facilitate the growth of the league, I think it would be a lot better. But I mean, they do what they do. I just think it could be a lot more entailed into the league.
Yeah, I like that. Ladies and gentlemen, we got Tony Farmer here on the show with us, a veteran, former player who continues to give back to the game. He's an ambassador of the game, played in the NBA with Charlotte in 97, 98, Golden State 99 to 2000. We're talking about his time being one of the top 10 players of the past couple decades down in Puerto Rico. Tony, it's great to have you sharing this knowledge and expertise with our viewers. Um, let's talk about some of those times with the Charlotte Hornets. And when you're with the Hornets, I believe it was Coach Cowens was down there at the time,
Correct.
correct? So, I mean, you had a Dell Curry, you had Anthony Mason, you had a great shooter in Glenn Rice, you had a Muggsy Bogues. What did you take from those players? Because you've always been a student of the game. So when you were sitting back, just like going to games, you know, in the league with throughout Puerto Rico, you're sitting there studying them. So that way you can know how to best utilize your skill set in a certain situation. But what did you take from some of those players once you got that opportunity to be with the Charlotte Hornets and that franchise and those players?
I mean, one thing that I took, so my story with them was a little interesting because Glenn Rice and I, we were very, very, very good friends in Miami. I lived in Miami. He lived in Miami. We're over. I was playing video games at his house every single day after our workouts, and we were just playing from sun up to sundown. We're going to University of Miami. We're getting our shooting in. We're getting our workouts in. And then I was a free agent from Miami at the time after leaving them. And he was saying, "Hey, what are you going to do?" I said, right now, my agent's in talks with Flip up in Minnesota. He was in contact with Butch Carter over in Toronto at the time, and these guys were guys he were close to. And Flip contacted him because when I was coming out of college after I left the Lakers, I played against Flip in the CBA. He said, "I don't know why you're down here. You should be an NBA player." And so the point of the matter is Glenn and I were tough. He said, "Hey, what about Charlotte?" I said, "Charlotte never contacted me." So he called up Bob Bass, who was a GM at the time, and Bob said, "Hey, Glenn said that you haven't signed yet." And I was talking to Dave Cowens and talking to Paul Silas and these guys, and he said, "I understand that Bobby Fields is your teammate in Sioux Falls, you guys rookie year, and we think we might have a place for you." So I went down there, had a great workout. I shot 42 out of 50 from the three. I shot, 40 out of 50, I think, from the two. I bench pressed, 225. And I did the vertical test. I did like 11 off of one leg. And they said the highest person was Glenn at that time. So anyway, I say that. So after I got a workout, he said, "We'll be in contact." And then when I got back to Miami, Glenn said, "Hey, man, you kind of killed the workout." I was like, "Well, I mean, I shot pretty good, but, it's individual, right? I'm not playing against anyone." And he said, "Yeah, but they look at, Dave Cowens looking at skill set, Paul and those guys, and they called me and said, 'Hey, we believe that we can use Tony on our team.'" So they signed me to a guaranteed deal. We're in the preseason of that year. My father had just passed away October the 10th, and I had started that night in the preseason and everything because Glenn, he left to go to a wedding. So it was, Bobby Fields was at the two, I was at the three, David Wesley was at the one, Mace was at the five, and Blade was at Mace was at the four, and Blade was at the five. We played against Golden State at 12 off the bench that game, got player of the game. They didn't even know my father had passed. I didn't say anything. And then from that standpoint, my preseason just went extremely well. My last preseason game, I had 20 against Minnesota and Kevin Garnett and those guys. And I remember Dave coming to me and said, "Hey, I didn't know what to expect from you being talented. And, you had just come back from Puerto Rico." He said, "But it's helping you because you're in crazy shape getting ready." So opening night, we played against the Knicks, and I started that game. Bobby was hurt, and Dave Cowan said, "Hey, I want to play Glenn at the two, start you at the three, and let's go." And I remember Larry Johnson got the ball. He torched me for the first 4 to 6 points. I was like, "What the hell?" So I ended up coming out, and Dave said, "Hey, you got to do what you've been doing in the preseason. Just come." So I ended up coming back and was doing well. But those experiences were really great. And then after that season was over, I went down to Puerto Rico again. I just kept using Puerto Rico as my stepping stone to come back. And then after I left Puerto Rico, I signed 2 years to Golden State. So it's like it kept bringing me back, right, to the league. But the thing that I can say always helped me is because Puerto Rico was in the summertime. I was able to come back and get ready for training camp in crazy shape. So my games are over in Puerto Rico like sometime around August. As you know, in getting ready in the preseason and the off season for the NBA, we're training hard. And I used to just go back to Miami. I was in really good shape and ready to play and things like that. And so, I've been fortunate enough to be around some very, very good players, right? I remember when I came back from France, I met with Pat Riley face to face. I lived in Florida at the time, went through their summer camp. Me and Ike Austin was just killing because Ike was in France at the time. And, we did well. And him and I got guaranteed deals. He got a 2-year deal. I got a 1+1. And Pat Riley said, "I'm going to know if what kind of player you're going to be if you can get through my summertime." Went through the summertime conditioning program. And I see why, because we had to do 5-17s the first day of training camp. I was like, "What on earth is this? Is not basketball." And he was like, "This is Pat Riley basketball." And we were doing like easy run. And we're just these things I've never seen. But, I was blessed to take bits and pieces, coach, from these guys. I went to Golden State, played for PJ my first year. Then my second year, Dave Cowens was the coach up there. So I was familiarized with him. And PJ got fired. Dave came in. So I've been around a coach getting fired in the NBA. And I remember they almost traded me because Larry Brown, he wanted me in Philadelphia. But I say that because there's so much chaos that goes on in professional sports, you've got to be able to persevere through these things, right? I mean, you and I, we know we've been on these long bus rides in Europe and these planes and these experiences that prepare you for the game of life. And I look at some of these players today, and I just kind of question their preparation for life, right? I used to be a John Morant fan coming in college, watching him block shots, but now I think he's so caught up, right, in the commotion, not the emotion, right? He's kind of taken this wannabe stardom. I'm not saying athletic as a player, but the stardom, like he wants to be on front page so bad that he's becoming front page for the wrong reasons, right? And you see these guys are, this entertainer is this dating this one, this model's dating this one, and they can't just have a wholesome, life and just kind of bank on that. I've been, my 7 years. We go strong, and she's my business partner, best friend, my confidant. But as you know, without that, you're not succeeding, man. I mean,
That's right.
you can have a girlfriend for a couple years and that don't work out. But it's like basketball, right? You have this relationship with basketball a couple years and it don't work out with the team. You blame the team, but you got to ask yourself, do I blame my preparation for that team, right? What are my outside influences? I was with my agent for my whole entire career except for year one. So, you got these guys that are coming into the league now. LeBron has kind of set a different mark for people coming in of how much he spends. But I mean, look at the pressure of what his son has. That young man has a tremendous amount of pressure on him. And it's not guaranteed for him to make it. Will he make it? I don't know. Does he have the ability? I believe he does. But the thing is, he has a great father that's going to deploy the right kind of things for him to get there, right? And then he's going to employ the powers who's going to help him, because he's going to remove himself from the equation and the emotion from the equation and hand him off to Andy at USC and let him do his thing. Yep. So that's the thing that I think is missed a lot in the game of basketball and a lot in the sports world.
Yeah, true fact there. You got to surround yourself with the right people. And sometimes, if you don't have a proper support system and the people around you, that's where things can get diluted and delusional in a hurry. So to hear you say that, I think are wonderful lessons for people to hear. And I think, the more choices and better choices and get rid of toxic people around you and just yes people, you got to surround yourself with people that's going to be, hold you accountable and help you attain the goals that you want to attain. So to hear you say those things, I think is gold. We got another 10 to 12 minutes here, and things have been so fun. And the stories you are telling are great life lessons for our viewers and our listeners today. To think about some of those guys with the Warriors that were with that group. I did my research and I saw, of course, Tim Legler, Terry Cummings, who's just a great guy, spiritual man. Mookie Blaylock was down there, Jason Coffey. How about that Warrior experience that you had? And what are some of the things you took from the Warriors experience that you still carry with you into the business entrepreneurship that you do now, Tony?
I mean, for me, the main thing that I can take from the Warriors is like, we won 19 games my first year, right? And PJ got released as a coach. And I remember we played Minnesota and we were down by 20 at halftime. And, PJ came in and said, guys, you guys know my job's in line. I don't know what else I can say to you, but, we need to win. And we came out in the second half and we outscored them unbelievable. And we end up going up by 20 and winning. And, you look at situations like that, and then you look at the big letdown of some of the home games we have when we lose. But one thing that I looked of some of those teams, there's a lot of dissension, right? There's guys that really were not that close, right? You got a Chris Mills and Danielle that they weren't that close. And, you have John Starks who's leading us as strong as he can, but, he only can do so much, right? Then you got Mookie Blaylock, he was like a quiet leader. Then you got Antoine, who's a vocal leader, but
Antoine Jameson,
Antoine was only his first year. Then I played with him his second year, and and PJ was a great coach. But to be honest with the PJ's defense, they didn't just give him a lot to work with, right? And I felt that you had Gary St. Jean as a GM, and he ends up coming down to be the coach. And I'm looking at why is he the coach? Because he's doing no better than PJ, right? And I don't think he was that great of a GM as well. And I know he didn't like me, and I didn't like him, and he didn't like me for the fact that I kind of held him to his job, right? I'm like, you're, and Jason Caffey went to him and said, hey, I know I'm making $5 million a year, and Tony's making $600,000 a year, but he's out playing. He's playing his butt off. So why is he not playing over me? I'm not performing. But the things I took, right? I took from that is like dysfunctional team, great organization, but dysfunctional team. And then I see Dave Cowens come in, and he's trying to, set the bar and try to give guys a little bit more of a loose feeling. But the thing, coach, is like you look at why are they not giving you an NBA chance? You know X and O's, you know how to get with help players play better. But you look at how the NBA is, and you look at the circling of the coaches, and it's just a round table resort, right? Okay, Nick Nurse, you can come over here. Okay, Coach Bud, you can come over here. But the things that I took from a lot of these teams that helped me really understand that the NBA is 1,000% a business, right? There's no emotion attached to it. Documentation beats conversation. I can say I was just truly blessed enough that the teams that I played on, I actually played, right? I didn't have to, sit the bench for and just never ever get in. And I had some good runs with some teams, but it kind of prepared me for the game of life, right? Even to our employees that my wife and I employ today for our trucking company. We have over 25 plus people on payroll just with that. And we always instill with them as I had a meeting with the drivers today, and I was explaining to them today. I said, hey, I'm on one of my favorite coaches' show this afternoon, if you guys get a chance to watch. But you guys got to understand, right? The team aspect to me means today, every attitude matters. That's what I tell them what team means to me. Not everybody achieves more. Doesn't work for me. It's today, every attitude matters. Because if you're going to work with a great attitude, and I'm showing that I'm happy to be waking up, I'm blessed, because I was telling some of our drivers today, I said, you guys should be thankful and happy that you guys woke up this morning, because some people did not. I mean, they got their number called. I don't know who that is. I know Tina Turner passed away today. I know that. So her number was called, right? And you look at some of these other people that are dying suddenly, life is not promised. So I've always been able to take bits and pieces from places I've been and played and turn them into positives. And, I remember when I was in France playing in Besançon, we were the number 8th or 9th seed in the playoffs, and we won the championship. So, I tell our kids, I tell my youngest son is 9, is like, you're going to play basketball whenever you feel like it. It's going to always be there. The game's going to change. And so what prompted us to want to do the facility is him wanting to play basketball, me just getting sick and tired of seeing basketball that is just straight trash. So I said, I'm going to get involved. We're going to do our thing. We're going to get our facility up and going. And that's how we got to it.
See, I love that. And as you know, I'm a father of a son who's playing professionally right now, and it's so gratifying to see him living his dreams and getting paid to do what he loves. But I love some of the things that you just shared with your sentiments. I mean, you talked about being in a team, and it's never going to work if everybody is not on the same agenda. Guys coming in with their own personal agenda and not being selfless and for the betterment of the team is never going to work. And as you said, it is a business, and here you are creating a culture with your trucking business to have everybody collectively work as a team, so that way you're going to have productivity day in and day out. And yeah, there's going to be ups and downs, and there's going to be trials and tribulations, and you've taken lessons from sport that is applicable to your life, because again, there are ups and downs, and you've been able to handle that adversity well, and you've always been able to stay on your feet and keep things moving and moving forward. And I have great respect for that, because there's a lot of people that just don't persevere. They'll get knocked down 2 or 3 times, and they're just like, okay, well, I just don't have the energy to keep pushing through. And you, Tony Farmer, continue to push through and try to create environments for people to be successful, so they can provide for their families. And that's a true leader. That's a CEO. That's a boss right there. And the fact that you and your wife are partners in that, I think is great, because that's showing that you have a core value of strong, effective communication between the two of you that will work anywhere around the globe.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, right? When you came back from coaching way back in 2004, 2005, when you came to my office, and we had the mortgage office, and I had my two partners with Sav and Marcus, and you saw we had a super huge building. We had all this, these employees. We were, doing well, but I've always maintained the same mentality, right? You've been in my house. I have the super huge house, and London and Taser were young at that time.
That's right.
But I say that because like my mentality has never changed, right? I mean, I can have more assets or less assets, but doesn't make or break me as a person, right? Because fear sharpens listening, and you got to exercise change, and you got to got to have the ability to adapt and understand what things are, right? So I take the situation of playing for the Kevin McKennas, the Scott Fields, the Clay Mosers, some of these old school coaches that I played for, the Danny Nees, that, you might know their name, you might not know their name, but you know their game, and they can teach the game. And, like you look at Eric Musselman and the Flip Saunders, and, the Mauro Panaggio, the Dan Panaggios, you look at those guys that were, true leaders in the CBA days, and how things were, and, what it was like to grind and play. And, you go up to play in the Fort Wayne Fury, and you look at these guys, and man, I'm going to these places I've never even heard of. And then I believe the Lord chose me to prepare me for that, to get to where I'm at today, and to get me to be blessed to play in the NBA, to play in Puerto Rico, so that my kids can pull up these videos and see like, man, Dad, you did okay. I said, yeah, but the best thing you can take to your grave and to do is your word, right? And when I went to Puerto Rico, I pretty much finished every job I started. So every time I played and stepped in that court, I lay it all down there. I could put my jersey down there. It was drenched. And, I'm sure if they ever considered retiring jerseys in Ponce, I'd have to at least be in the conversation. So, I'm
Amen.
appreciative of that.
Amen. And see, the thing that I continue to hear from you, and I'm just going to put it out there, because those names of coaches you just mentioned, those guys are solid, and they are great leaders, effective communicators, have core values, and they're going to, they're going to create a culture, and there's no flexibility to that. They're not going to let the tail wag the dog, as you mentioned about 15 minutes ago, how the league is kind of conforming to what the culture is giving them, instead of setting a standard and saying, hey, this is what we're going to create. Love hearing those things, and thank you for your kind words. It means a lot. We got about a minute and a half. You stand for a lot of great things, but your core values, your character, the principles that you stand by, a lot of people don't know and can't speak that language because they haven't been in our shoes for many miles. So sometimes sharing a vision is hard for them to even fathom. But what last message could you share with the viewers of the Coach Scott Field Show today to help them achieve in anything in life?
I would say is find your place. That's number one. Find your place in life, right? If you're going to be the person that wants to cook hamburgers, don't go to McDonald's. McDonald's sells everything. Go to In-N-Out, learn how to do that. Once you realize what's your place in life and you pursue your passion, it's easy to give up on something that has not facilitated 100%. It's harder to dictate something by you staying with your mission, right? To every message, there's a mission. To every mission, there's a message. So I tell people, like, we've been in trucking and logistics for 4 years, right? I got in with FedEx as an undercover boss, knew nothing about it, became a driver, didn't let them know I was trying to buy our own. Ended up doing that over a 2-year period, getting our own and kind of evolving after that, but I didn't know anything. We end up getting rid of that business, and now, running with Amazon full time, doing that and having the chance to just learn. But, when I interviewed with Amazon to gain, these contracts, right, it wasn't easy. I didn't use my NBA or basketball. That wasn't something that was selling them. What was selling them is my ability to lead and my ability to create teams, and what I'm looking at of how many leaders can I create. That's what sold them, right? Because it took me a year to get approved with them. nothing that I did. It's just they put you through some grueling backgrounds, interviews. I had 7 interviews, and the interesting part of it is like I learned a lot, right? And I spent, a week up there in Seattle training at their culture and at their headquarters. But what I learned, Coach, more than anything with them is Jeff Bezos started his garage, man, with a Kindle, right? And they were laughing at the online retail aspect of it, and they thought it was a joke. But now you see he's a multi-billionaire. And so for your listeners, I would tell them is if, pick something to do and something to study. My favorite show is Shark Tank. Two companies I study is Costco and Amazon on a religious daily basis. But at the end of the day, I've kind of found my way, right? Love logistics, love what I'm doing. Is it work? It's a lot of work, man. Trucks are a lot of work. Employees are a lot of work. Dealing with guidelines and time frames and things you have to do. It's a lot, but it's created opportunity for others. And that's what I have looked at and what makes me happy to say, you know what? I'm helping these people become better.
Yeah, Tony, God bless you, brother. Thank the world of you. I've got nothing but love and respect for you. And to have this opportunity to share, this last 55 minutes with our viewers and our listeners, I feel blessed. So I appreciate you for that. Continue to live, love, and serve like you do. Just know that society is better because you're in it, and continue to impact others and create opportunities for others because you've always been selfless. Trust me when I tell you, I know that the game and society is better off because you were in it, but we need more Tony Farmers out there being successful with that drive and perseverance and work ethic that you've always had throughout your life. I've got nothing but love for you, brother.
Appreciate it, Coach, for having me on here. It's been the second time I've seen the first time this thing was launching when you were just in a small little cube like this, trying to have it. Now you got Rockwell, and now you got and you're getting some fantastic guests. So, it took you a while when you're coming back from coaching, having your surgeries and doing different things like, okay, what do I need to do to get going? Because I want to stay attached with basketball. Now, look, you got hundreds of thousands of viewers. People are watching you. So you got to keep doing what you're doing with the Scott Field Show, because at the end of the day, it's going to turn to something better, right? You're going to get that bigger podcast, that bigger break. It's just a matter of time, right? Once we get that time clock ticking, it just takes one person to pick up the phone and say, we need that where we're at. So you're doing a good job, man. Much love for you.
Appreciate you, brother. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this is Tony Farmer, and this is the Coach Scott Field Show. Sure appreciate you consuming and watching. Hopefully, you've picked up life lessons that's going to make you a better person and a better businessman, or whatever it is that you do. Just be good at it and be the best at it. Tony Farmer, God bless you, brother. Much love.
All right, Coach. Appreciate it. You guys have a good one.